Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is now we've got our collectibles on our layout, we're going to sort out a little UI counter so that as we collect our collectibles, the player can see how many they've collected. And if you've got some sort of condition on your exit, the player can see how close they are to meeting that condition. So if you've got the condition that you've got to kill so many enemies, you can adapt what we're going to do here to track that for the player as well. So let's do the first bit on the layout where we'll need something visual that the player can see. Now this is going to be part of our UI, so let's make sure we click on the UI layer. Let's double click on here to add something. And like I said in the previous video, you can make this visual in terms of objects appearing, but we're just going to do it as text. Now we've got two options. We've got the text option, which is standard text, or what you use for the Pong game, and maybe if you shoot them up, was a sprite font. And I much prefer the sprite font because it just looks nicer. And you can import your own sprites and your own fonts and things like that. But for now, we'll just use the default. So we'll call this Collectible 1 UI to differentiate it so we know what it is. And it's for Collectible 1, of course. And click Insert. Let's click on the layout somewhere and that will open the sprite font. Now we don't need to worry about that. We don't need to change color or anything. We can just close that. And that will go here. So let's drag that into the top corner for now. Okay, again, you can position it wherever you want. You can make your own little HUD, which will look really good on the game, but traditionally it goes up there, and it's on the UI layer, and that's really, really important, so double check that. You can change the color of the sprite font by changing the color here. So, you know, we've got that purple up at the top now. Let's make it, the collectibles are yellow, so let's make it yellow. And if I really wanted to, I could go into the collectible and make it exactly the same color, but we'll just leave it like that for now. Also, I want to, I'll add a bit of text. Now, we're going to replace this text, but just so we can see what we're going to call this coins space equals space 0 for now. And that shows us how much room we need, you see, so that's quite a bit important. Now, they're not likely to get a lot of coins, but let's give them a bit of space here. We don't want it to be chopped off. If they get more than like 10 or more than 9 or something. So there you go, there's our UI. That's all we're going to have for now. So let's go to the event sheet now and add some code. So the first thing we want to do is when the player collides with a coin and destroys that coin, we want some sort of tracker to count how many coins have been collected. So we're going to need a global variable. And because this is something that is only for the player across the whole level, it can be a global variable rather than an instance variable. So let's right click just at the bottom here and go add global variable. Let's call this collectible 1. We'll keep it as a number and its initial value should be 0 because we haven't got any. And we'll just put in here tracks the number of collectible ones have been collected. So again, just, you know, in a couple of weeks time when we can't remember what that thing is, that'll remind us. And you can see that goes up there. So now we have that tracker. So every time a player collides with collectible 1, this code here, we want it to add 1 to this. So we'll add an action here to this code. So when a player collides with collectible 1, destroy collectible 1, and let's add another action. We want system, because it's a global variable. Go down to global variables and add to, and collectible 1 and the value of 1. In this case, 1 represents 1 coin, but of course you can make it whatever number you want. Okay. Now, so that will collect it in the global variable collector, but now we want to update the UI. So we need to make it viewable to the player what the global variable is, and that's what our UI is set to do. All right, so we need to wire that up. So let's go to add event. And we want this, we could do this a couple of different ways. Generally, the way that I do it is we want this to update every tick, so every frame of the game, rather than when the player collects a collectible. So we're just going to do this as a separate event. We'll go to System and we'll go to every tick, because there are likely to be other things we want to put on every tick. So we might as well put this on. So every tick. So every tick, it'll update the UI for the player. Okay, so there'll be no lag, no delay. It's constantly updating it, whether it's changed or not. And every tick then, let's add an action. It's the collectible one UI that wants to change. Click next and scroll down. Because it's still basically a text element, we can go down to set text, because we want to change the text. Now, this is a little bit of code that you need to know. So inside these inverted commas is what the player will see, or the text, as it were. So inside there, we want to put coins, because if we don't put that bit, then the player, it will get replaced with just a number. So we still want that bit in. Outside of the inverted commas, you want to put an ampersand. If you didn't know what that was called, that's an ampersand. So it's Shift and 7 on your keyboard. It's the AND symbol, isn't it? And then we want to put the name of the global variable, and this is how you tell it to do that. So if you start typing in collectible, you'll actually see it comes up there. It's got the little globe next to it. So if you click on that, or double click on that, it adds that, and that will now, that's the code that will update the display for you. So if you click done, and you can see now every tick that updates. So let's have a go at that. Let's try that out. Okay, so as I collect these coins, you should see that the coins go up there. Boom, boom, boom. And I have a bit more of a playable game now. I actually have something, I have choices now. I can choose to collect the coins. I can choose to kill the enemies. I'm starting to build the mechanical building blocks of a platform game. And this is one of the reasons that we do a platform game, because it's relatively easy to build these building blocks and it looks really, really good. Okay, so that's it for the final tutorial that I'm doing today. I will be setting up some more tutorials for the third set of instructions, which will be for your menus and for win conditions and exit conditions and things like that. Okay, so join me for those then.